Hey everyone, good evening. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those visiting for the first time, my name's Josh Black. I'm a senior concept artist. I work for Stoke Games, and I also teach figure drawing and human anatomy. So I wanted to share today what I do every morning as a morning routine to warm up. Um, to help me be better prepared for a day of drawing and designing. So I wanted to start off by showing you a series of exercises that I do to warm up, and then one thing that I like to do every day if I can fit it in, if I wake up before my kids wake up, I try to do a series of quick gesture drawings. And I like to keep those anywhere from like 1 minute to 5 minutes. And if I end up having time and things are going my way, I'll try to get in a few longer sustained gestures at like 5 to 10 minutes. And in addition to that, I like to squeeze in maybe one anatomical study and sketch. For those who follow my Instagram, I try to post at least one of those, or I guess a couple of those a day. Anyway, let's dive into some of those exercises. One of the first things that I like to do is drawing a series of circles and spheres. I'm using my soft sketch brush, which I include in my Gumroad tutorials. I really like it because it has pen pressure sensitivity, it has a soft edge on one side and a hard edge on the other. So I can get a nice range of variety in the line, which always makes for a more energetic and interesting sketch. So yeah, I do a series of circles, kind of fill up the page with those. And just so you know, right here I'm drawing mostly with my shoulder. I'm actually not really using my wrist at all. I think drawing with your shoulder is really important, and definitely makes a huge difference when you're trying to draw more accurate circles. If you try doing that with just your wrist, let's see, I'll just try doing it real quick. I mean, I've been drawing with my shoulder so much now that it's hard to even force myself to just draw with my wrist. But yeah, just using your shoulder, rotating it, and kind of keeping your wrist and your hand still. I think it's a great way to control your line, and definitely helps when you're drawing circles and ellipses, which is kind of the next thing I like to do. Just fill up the page with ellipses and different perspectives and directions. We'll start drawing a little darker. After I do a series of these ellipses, I like to cut them up like pizzas, like little pizzas. I think it's a nice way to warm up your ability to draw straight lines, which is also a skill that I think you have to practice often. Oh. As you can see, I'm not spending too much time on these. Again, the objective is just to kind of loosen up, to get a little more line confidence. And these are the things that I do that really help with my my line quality. I know a lot of people ask me on my Instagram and even YouTube, like how do I get such confident lines? And really, it's just pencil mileage. It's doing these exercises and putting in the hours. It's just like any other performance art or sport for that matter. It requires a lot of practice, like playing the piano or, if you're a dancer, dancing a lot. And if you do bodybuilding or, weightlifting, it's something you do every day to get better. Same with drawing. There's really like no shortcut other than putting in the time. So yeah, I suggest doing these exercises. I also like to draw a series of kind of three-dimensional volumetric shapes, cubes and spheres, cones. I'll kind of draw through those forms. The objective of this is to kind of help train your mind to think of the 2D surface that you're drawing in as a 3D surface, as a 3D space, I should say. So, for instance, if you draw a sphere or a circle, then turn it into a sphere by adding some cross contours. And it's almost like you're adding, topology on it, which is a term, and for 3D artists. But it's nice to do that as a 2D artist as well. Again, to help you with your ability to conceptualize three-dimensional shapes on your paper. And then, doing a series of cones and different perspectives. And cylinders. Sorry, I'm going a bit fast because I want us to get to the exciting part, drawing, figure drawing. I'm sure that's what most of you are more interested in. But that said, I know these exercises maybe aren't like the most glamorous. They're not terribly exciting, but they really do make a difference over time with developing line confidence and just confidence in general with your mark making and draftsmanship. Okay, so now that we've done some of those exercises, I think we're ready to dive into some gestures, and we're going to use the Proko timer tool that I was just introduced to, I think it was last month or maybe 2 months ago. I don't know, time's just been flying for me. But I absolutely love it. It's a great tool for doing this very exercise of doing quick gestures. You can set the timer anywhere from like 1 minute all the way up to 25 minutes, and it'll just switch reference images for you, when the amount of time runs out. And it's a nice way if you can't afford to draw and do figure drawing sessions, live figure drawing sessions, and show up in person. This is something you can do in the convenience of your home, or even just off your phone. You can pull up this timer tool, and if you have your sketchbook on you, you can do some of your gestures on the go, or like, let's say if you have a full-time job where um, you have a little space of time where you're not really doing much and just sitting down, like maybe squeezing some figure drawings. I don't know. Um, anyway, okay, so let's get started with these. I'm gonna save the video real quick just so I don't lose this. Sometimes my recordings just get erased, so let's do that. Okay, so these first ones will be a minute long. The objective here is just to warm up our wrist, our hand-eye coordination, and just to loosen up. We don't have to create fully completed figure drawings. They don't have to aesthetically be amazing. Don't put that pressure on yourself with these. Just do your best to get as much down as you can, and try to loosen up. Focus more on the broader rhythms and shapes. And as we increase the time, we'll focus more on those other things. So, all right. Well, let's jump into it. Oh yeah, before we start, I'm not going to be able to show you the reference images on these short poses, just because it's going to change very often, and I don't know how to share both screens. I still need to figure that out with Camtasia, but I'll include the images for sure with the longer poses that we'll do after this. So let's get started. Okay. All right, so before I do the next one, I just want to kind of share what my thoughts were while doing this initial gesture. As you can see, I'm just keeping the line very light. I'm trying to stay really loose, and I'm not really focusing much on detail. Everything is pretty much focusing on direction and rhythm. And weight. And I mean, if you look at any of these shapes, in and of themselves, they're pretty abstract. And it's only when you zoom out and look at all of them together does it resemble a figure. So I want you guys to do the same for these 1 minute poses. Just try to keep loose and try to be more bold with your lines, even if you're not 100% accurate. Just try to loosen up and be as confident as you can. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Oops. I'll move this out of the way. So again, just to reiterate, I'm mostly just focusing on the overall directions and rhythms. It's like creating a very rough kind of underlying sketch that I can work on top of and add details later. Okay. I don't know what it is with all these sitting poses. Just moving these initial drawings out of the way. Okay, let's just do like 3 more of these 1-minute gestures, and then we'll move on to some 3-minute gestures. Okay, so 3 more of these. So the more you do these, the quicker you'll get, because you'll just loosen up more and more. Next one. think that... Sorry, I'm just cleaning this one up a little bit. Yeah, I think that's enough for these 1 minute gestures. We'll just group those together. So yeah, you can see with 1 minute, you don't have a whole lot of time to get everything down, but that's why it's so critical that you streamline as much as possible the forms. You know, like for example, look at this lake here. It's just simple, you know, tapered lines to indicate the direction of that leg, and I mean these limbs too. They it's just capturing the direction and the rhythm of the arms. I didn't really add any anatomy. The torso has a bit more structure to it. But I think doing these really quick gestures, again, it will loosen you up, but it'll also help you kind of get your overall proportions more on point, and it'll make it easier for you to get your measurements and proportions more correct without having to use like measuring tools or, you know, spending a lot of time to make sure everything's perfect. So yeah, I definitely recommend, you know, doing these 1 minute gestures as often as you can. I think just doing, you know, several to a dozen a day before you dive into your longer poses, it's a great way to warm up. Okay, so now we're gonna dive into the 3 minute poses, and with these I'm definitely going to include the reference. And again, the reference is from Proko's reference bundles, and I'm going to leave a link on this YouTube post to those bundles, so if you're interested you can check them out. Yeah, let's move on to the 3 minutes. Okay, so we're going to move on to those 3 minute gestures, and I want you guys to be able to follow along. So I'm going to include the reference. Before we do that, I just wanted to show you quickly how to use the Proko timer tool. You just go to proko.com/timer, and it pulls up all these reference bundles, and then you just kind of add the ones you want to see in your session. So I'll just pick some of these full figure options, and then we go up here to the top right. It'll show us all the selections we've made for our session, and we choose the amount of images we'd like to do for the session, and then we select the time. It's nice because it has a custom option, which is really easy to use. So we'll add 3 minutes there, and then when we're ready, we just start the session. Okay, so I'll include these. Again, these are 3 minutes. So usually I start off with blocking out the head, then the gesture of the neck, the gesture of the shoulders, then of the clavicles, and then once we have that, we can find that C curve of the torso, block in mass of the rib cage, we'll block in those shoulders, So again, I'm keeping everything really light. And that way I can, draw on top of it with a darker line and kind of correct my mistakes. I'm just trying to keep things loose. All right. So once you kind of get the general rhythms and directions down, then you can go back in and add some darker lines. Okay, we'll just move that over. We'll start on our next one. Again, I'll get the C curve on the front of the torso, block in the rib cage. So we have about 1.5 minutes left on this. All right. Before we move on to the next one, I just wanted to kind of go over my process on this last one here. Again, it's 3 minutes, so we don't have a ton of time to really get into the details yet. I think once we move on to the 5-minute poses, which we'll do next, we should be able to get a little bit more shading and lighting and some anatomy in there. But again, I'm using a lighter line, just trying to block in the overall rhythms and directions of the limbs, the legs, the torso, and of the neck and head. I like to do these wrapping lines that go across the breadth of the figure. This one's kind of more like the chest line. Obviously, this top one's the eye line. And then I'll usually do one too for like the pelvis, just to kind of show the tilt of the pelvis. And I like doing that. I feel like it adds a little more energy and excitement to your sketch. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's save real quick so we don't lose this. Okay, I think this will be our last 3-minute pose. So let's get started on this. Okay, I'm going to start off with gesture of the skull, the cranium, and the neck muscles, the sternocleidomastoids, and hit the clavicles. And we get the C curve with the torso. I'm just going to do a little straight here to kind of show me where the pelvis would be. And then we'll do a line of action for the shoulders. Lock in the rib cage. Hit those obliques. And the gluteus medius and the TFL. Let's get the gesture of that speedo. Block in the gesture of the arms. The lats. Find the other arm. There we go, 40 seconds. Let's block in the gesture of the abs. Quickly get the legs. There's a nice line of action here on this side. Runs down to the floor. We can kind of orient the feet in relation to each other. All right, Let's go over this real quick. I spent a little more time kind of blocking out the anatomy of the torso on this gesture. So obviously, as you can see, I didn't get a whole lot of detail with the limbs or the head. But with this model being pretty muscular, it's tempting to spend a little bit of time on that defined anatomy. But even with those like really loose lines, so just throw in a few straights here. Like, look how much structure it starts having already. But this little gesture line that I was doing here kind of indicates where the shoulders meet with the upper pecs, and with muscular models you'll see a little furrow here in between the shoulders and the pecs called the infraclavicular fossa. It's a nice little kind of landmark to look out for. Again, wanted to hit that C curve to show the midline of the torso. And so I think it's really helpful when you're doing these muscular models. You block out the base of the rib cage, and then from there you can kind of gesture in the obliques. And then remember that those the obliques, these guys, sit on top of the hips, which includes the glutes and the TFL, the sartorius, and the crotch muscles. So yeah, we didn't get terribly far, but I think we got some good information in there. So all right, well, let's move on to the 5 minute gestures now. Just do a little straight there. Let's save it. Okay, so I know I said 5 minutes before, but I thought since this will probably be the last pose, let's go ahead and increase the time to 10 minutes and see how far we can get. Okay, we'll start it the same way, blocking in the cranium. And we'll gesture in the jawline. Look at those neck muscles in. Get the pit of the neck there. Find the clavicles. This clavicle's raised up. She's leaning on the stick there. So kind of the gesture of the shoulders. I'm just going to do these little spheres to kind of indicate where the deltoids would be. And here I think we got a nice C curve to show the midline of the torso. We'll block in the rib cage. So we'd have the sternum coming down to here. We'd have the thoracic arch. We kind of block that in. Then above it you have the breast line. And just block in the volume of the breasts. Just gonna suggest the direction of the arm. And I'm going to go in light so we can go in later with more confidence. So you can see there's a little bit of twisting. You can see that the oblique is showing us a little bit more of the side of the torso there. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of block in the perspective of the pelvis. I'll find the gesture of the swimsuit. Go ahead and find that line of action of the screen right leg. So it comes down to the heel, and that's the leg taking all the weight. Let's kind of follow the side of the big toe and do a vertical line up to see if it's matching. Kind of looks like it's hitting the navel, so that's good. It's more or less where it should be. I'll gesture in this other leg. Okay. Looks like the knee is just a little bit above. That calf there. Again, it kind of looks like it's following that navel, the medial side of that leg. Alright, I think we have a decent foundation so far. Probably want to show the gesture of the staff that she's holding onto. We'll kind of draw a line to make sure we know where it falls in relationship to where the feet are. Then we'll just do a nice straight line coming down. Plants right there. I'll come up here and start fleshing out this arm. gesture in the hand. Get that knuckle line. So it looks like comes over a bit. Maybe we'll add in a few more minutes so we can get a bit further. It's honestly, it's not easy talking and drawing at the same time. It's a skill that I am still trying to improve on. I think, yeah, I made the model overall a little too wide, so I just narrowed it a bit. I can see the pit of this screen right arm kind of lines up with this this bra line. See, and now we can start kind of roughing in a little bit of the shading. Lock in that value there. You know, I think we have a pretty good start here, but I need to take even more time to go ahead and just flesh in the head and kind of finish out this figure a bit more, and then we'll kind of go over my thought process. But before we do that, I want to save it real quick. So So we'll do that. All right. Yeah, so looking at the reference and kind of going back and forth, I think there's just a little bit more of a tilt here. And the legs are a bit longer, so I think that kind of gets us more in the ballpark. And the head's a little bit bigger here, so we'll just go ahead and increase the size of that. Yeah, that comes a little bit higher. Okay, so yeah, I think now we can go in and kind of start finalizing things. So yeah, I think we'll definitely want to flesh out this face a bit more. Here we can kind of see that there's a core shadow on the screen left sternocleidomastoid. Then that kind of merges into this cast shadow being casted by the jaw and the chin. Then that cast shadow continues onto the shoulder. And then feeds back into the clavicle here. So we'll just go ahead and fill that in. So a little bit of the ponytail sticking out there. Might be a bit too dark. Block in the shadow shape here on the shoulder, and then let's go ahead and so we can see here that the arm muscles kind of overlap the armpit here, creates some nice depth. You can see a little bit of that tricep as it kind of dips down a little bit. And that pit of the arm doesn't go all the way down. But again, that cross contour right there is a nice opportunity to create some depth. You always want to look for those opportunities. You can see the protrusion of the ulna. Remember, the ulna is always on the side of the pinky. So I'll just kind of block that in. Maybe we'll just flesh out one of the fingers here and have that feed back into the... So we can delete the top because the hand's resting on top of the staff there. To do this straight, I'm going to zoom out a bit. Okay. There we go. Oh. Yeah, I think that's in the ballpark. Just going to accentuate the turning of the oblique there. Kind of fill in that shadow shape. And just to get some tonal contrast here, I'm going to go ahead and just fill in the swimsuit here. Just going to push back that bicep that's receding in the background. So it's quite obvious that this knee comes out a bit further, so I'm going to go ahead and make that correction. And that means that cast shadow is going to come in a bit closer to the kneecap. So there we go, feels better. Go ahead and block in the shin there, and most of this is in shadow, so I'm just going to increase my brush size and then kind of just block in that shadow shape. Same thing with that leg in the back. I'm gonna just clean this up a little bit. That's the nice thing, is you can always go in and clean up some of that underlying construction and lines when you start this rendering process, or doing the shading. So there's a little break here at the knee that's visible. And we'll just try to get a little bit of overlap right there, a little cross contour. Just want to be subtle on that. And get that gesture line of the toes. Then I always like to accentuate the kind of that little dark accent under the ankle bone, whether it's on the medial side or the lateral side. In this case, it's on the lateral side. That foot's looking a bit big. We need to shave off just a little bit there. And another thing I like to do is just kind of establish an ellipse that the figure's kind of standing on. Sometimes that just kind of helps to ground the figure a bit more. And okay, I'm so sorry. We're definitely taking this figure a lot further than I intended, but I just wanted to share a little bit more of my process and start going into these longer poses. Just to show you how you kind of build on top of those gestures that we did earlier, and how that serves as kind of your foundation throughout the rest of the process. So that side of the hand is in shadow. Then we got these knuckles that have little cast shadows on them. The thumb is in shadow. And then of course the staff is casting a shadow on the forearm. Okay, so let's kind of sharpen the line under the bra here. There's this little negative shape right there between the two legs. I mean, these types of poses are always challenging where the legs are overlapping each other like that, because you have to get things fairly precise, so the negative shapes and the overlapping makes sense. Alright, so I think the body's looking pretty good. We'll move on to the face. If I'm like really gonna go ahead and do a full-on render of something, and I think I've shown this in previous videos, I'll go ahead and kind of do like a value wash on the figure. And that way I can kind of go back in and really make the dark accents and the highlights pop. So maybe we'll go ahead and add a few of those. Let's render out the face. Before we do, let's hurry and save. Okay, so let's just do a quick kind of block in of the head here, and we'll call this one done. Let's get that pit of the neck blocked in a little better. We'll just show the hairline here. And base of the nose. Just show that center line. We'll just diminish this chin a bit. I'm just going to clean up some of this construction just so we can more easily see that hand. Okay. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. It's not perfect. Geez, this this knee is still bothering me. I wonder if we just pulled it out just a little bit. Still don't think it's quite long enough, so we'll just go ahead and pull that out. Alright, that's much better. And this coarse shadow on the thigh here is a little thicker in the middle, so I'm going to go ahead and indicate that. Alright, so let's call this done. Oh, actually there was one more thing I wanted to do, just to show you why it's nice to kind of have things have some tone on it, to do those tonal washes. Because again, you can go in with a lighter value like this and start hitting highlights, you know, if you have a little more time. It's a nice way to kind of get things to start popping a little bit more. So maybe here on the clavicle. But yeah, you can keep going and really hit those highlights. It's like there's a little bit more here on the stomach. A bit on the clavicle. Anyway, it's pretty fun doing these tonal drawings, kind of pulling out those highlights. This toe is bothering me. I just want to get that shape a little more solid. Alright, okay, there we go. So again, I could go on for probably another hour fleshing this guy out, this girl. But we don't have time for that. Not in this one. So yeah, I'm just kind of cleaning up some of these areas that are standing out to me a little bit. Alright, so we'll save this, and then let's just do a quick run through and we'll wrap this video up. Okay, so just doing a quick overview of this drawing. So my process again is we just started with really light soft line to do the lay-in. Focusing more on finding the overall directions, tilts, and rhythms of the figure. And then after that I was able to go in and start defining the anatomy, the landmarks, and after that dove a little bit into shading, getting some of those core shadows, cast shadows. You know, didn't get terribly far, but I feel like with the time we had and kind of wrestling with multitasking that I struggle with, I think it turned out alright. Anyways, I really hope this video was helpful and it gave you a glimpse into my morning routine that I try to do every morning to help me personally improve. And I have to say, this is something I've been doing especially since 2020, and I've seen a lot of progress for myself, and I'm definitely pretty busy with my full-time job and, you know, all the things I'm doing right now and having kids, but I still I still try to find time to get these exercises in, and I always feel better about the day when I do. So yeah, I think if you just push yourself to do a little bit each day, that over time you'll see some progress, some major progress. Anyways, I want to thank you again for tuning in, and hopefully you learned something from this, and until next time.